Welcome to Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric and Torta Fleece 2023. You might notice a little bit different wheel configuration today. I am going to start plying my green spin today. But I'm always talking about how the cats go a little bit crazy the minute I start setting up in here or setting up at all. So I wanted to share this quick little shot of my cats confiscating my chair and playing a little bit underneath it. I'm sure all of you who have cats know that the minute you try to sit down somewhere, they think that's the place they need to be. And this morning was definitely no exception. It was actually a little bit funnier than normal because the big one sitting in my chair is named Ting, and he is usually a little bit more asleep this time of day, but he got into the fray and everything got a little bit chaotic. But we're ready to spin now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the topic. I checked ahead of time, so I have my I'm prepared for it. But it's spindles and wheels, spinning the fiber. Let's talk about how we're spinning the fiber today. Actually, I can set that in there. Okay. But let's, on the note of my recent technological difficulties with my second camera, I think it is my SD card, my memory card, and it was going bad. So I've swapped it out and we'll see if we can get more than 3 to 6 minutes of video recording with it. We will see. I'm hoping we do because I'd like for you to be able to have the different angle. I'm spinning on my Kromsky Sonata today. I have it set up with a jumbo bobbin and the jumbo flyer specifically for plying. It is a wonderful travel wheel, but for me, most of the time, I just use it for my plying wheel. I love it for plying. While I love the double drive for my spinning singles, I do find that the Scotch tension is a little bit easier to control the take up when it comes to plying. So I have on this wheel, there is a Kate actually attached to it. I don't have, I didn't bring my other Kate out here because it is a little cramped, but basically put the bobbins on something. I've put the bobbins just in a bowl, a plastic bowl to apply before. But I'm going to drop the bobbins down onto the Kate. When I'm doing more than a 2-ply, I have a Kate my husband made that's just a plank of wood with holes drilled into it and dowels set into the holes. And that's what I use. So my leader, again, like in yesterday's video, just has a little loop at the end. And in this case, I put the 2 singles through the loop, adjust my brake, and oh yeah, very important thing. Yes, it's going to be one of those days. A very important thing is to make sure you catch your leader on your flyer. It tends to get wound around. Now let's see, without because I don't have my hook here. Let me see if I can actually. That's the nice thing about the jumbo flyer is that the orifice is much larger, and so I can stick a finger in to pull the leader through. We are off to a great start. The things that can go wrong. Okay, so I am back to now plying. It's going on. So flat tires and malfunctions. My brake band broke on my Symphony after spinning in yesterday's video. I called it a flat tire, but my pit crew was here to help me out, and that is a wonderful thing, right? Okay, so I am just simply plying together the two strands. I'm watching the twist angle, but mainly I'm kind of feeling it go through my fingers. I do a lot by feel. I want this to be a fairly light, fluffy, so I'm really... One of the crazy cats is over here digging in a basket. But as I was saying, I want this to be a light and fluffy, so I really want to make sure that I am not putting too much twist. I think I can adjust this down. I'm going to adjust this down, the net down, and put this on a larger whirl, so I'm getting less twist with the take up that I have. I want this to be, I want it to be a balanced yarn, definitely, but I also do not want to take any chances of over plying this. I know that I put less twist in the singles, and so we're going to, yeah, it might be a little underplied, but I think today I'd rather have a little underplied than a little overplied. So as I was saying, I'm just plying together the two singles. Sometimes, especially if I have very energetic singles, I'll keep my fingers between the different singles as they go in. I'm sure that the microphone isn't necessarily picking it up, but my orange tabby is is crawling into the basket over here. It might be visible on the other camera. I don't know, but it's distracting me from my yarn and my recording and my video. Okay, will the rest day ever come? I'm laughing a lot this morning, but you have to laugh at it because otherwise you just would get frustrated, and I don't want to be frustrated, so I will let the cat, as long as I don't tear anything down, as long as my cameras don't tip over, I'm just going to let them have their fun. So the topic, as I am plying together this, and I know some people, plying is not usually our favorite thing to do. We want to have the yarn done, we've done the singles, and now we just have to, yard by yard, get the singles plied together, and then we'll have our yarn. So it's the final, well, it's the final stage before we can see what our yarn's going to look like. And I think that the anticipation coupled with the endless, what seems like the endless plying, is, tends to make people not really enjoy this. I like it, I look at it kind of like in the with quilting, sewing on the binding. You're almost done. You can almost see the final product, but you still have a lot of work to do. It's like, it's the amount of time of spinning a single only, with less need to concentrate, maybe. But so one of the things I do is if I have a nap or a nap that I don't want in when I'm spinning, especially if I'm doing a long draw and woolen, is I'll leave them in the singles, and then as I ply, when I run into the lump, I'll pick them out at that point. Sometimes they just kind of compress and disappear on their own, but occasionally it's nice. So let me just double check really quick. Yeah, I think that this is going to, maybe after it sets, I think this is actually going to be pretty decent. That might be I might have a good ratio for it, for my distracted plying. Because now I want to talk about the spindles and wheels, the spinning of the fiber as a topic. There are, first thing I want to say is there are so many different types of drop spindles, let's say spindles. I'm going to cover a couple, but there are so many varieties. Sorry, I have an itchy eye. So many varieties of spindles out there, and they vary depending on region. They vary depending on culture. Spindles spinning seems to be pretty universal throughout the world. Task, skill that developed, and the spindles and how people spun their wools developed in the cultures. And so you will see a large variety of spindles when you start looking for them. But they do kind of fall into a couple categories. And that's what I'll be covering, is the kind of the categories, and show you a couple examples. So I think that the one that we hear about all the time is the drop spindle. And we joke that you can hear us dropping the spindle. Then I heard one person commented, that's how we know that we're doing it right, is we can hear it dropping. Well, if we're doing it right, we're trying to not drop it on the floor that much. But it is, it does help make us laugh a little bit at our learning curve, if we do laugh at the fact that instead of them just dropping to spin, they're hitting the floor. So I have a couple. I love these. These are a few of the same maker, and I can't remember his name, but these are wonderful spindles, beautifully mastered by an engineer, a retired, I think, aviation engineer. They're so well balanced and really quite strong and beautiful. I'll show you what the difference between those two are here in a moment. I also have some pretty basic drop spindles. Here's a long one and a short one, just to show you. Drop spindles come in all different sizes and shapes and weights. And so that's what I wanted to show you about these guys. Here, let me stop that for just a moment. I have a lightweight and I have a heavier weight. On this, I have some lightweight CVM or Shetland. I can't remember now. I use these mostly for demonstration purpose more than actually drop spindling. However, they spin so beautifully. They're so well balanced. And then I have a heavier one, and I know what fiber is on this one. This is the Leicester long wool. It is a heavier, denser fiber to begin with. So I'm using a heavier whorl, a heavier spindle to balance that out. So the weight of your spindle, especially in the case of a drop spindle, the weight of the spindle is critical. So thus the drop. You put on more fiber and you hang it and you spin the drop spindle. So the weight of your spindle does matter. If you're using a really heavy spindle and you're using a very short, light fiber, you're probably going to get too much what we on the wheel we call take up, and it's going to make it harder for it to stay together as you're learning and practicing. I suspect that a person who is really good at spindle spinning probably can make it work, but for those of us that dabble rather than do it all the time, if you're using a very fine, lightweight fiber, try to get one of the lighter weight spindles. Oh, yes. And I'm not even gonna pause the camera because I know it's right here in this basket. There we go. And I forgot, I have a couple other spindles that I want to share. There is, that's actually, so this is a top whorl. That is a bottom whorl. just to show you the difference between those. And that's a stone that goes through that one. So a different look, a different shape. It's got a little bit of a hook here at the top to catch the fiber. This is another top whorl. This one was one that I think I won in a challenge or something of that nature. So beautiful wood, little spindle. Yes, it's a zebra wood. And yeah, so 2 different additional drop spindle types. So you can find them, you can find all sorts of different people making them in your region, different styles. So looking up spindles and doing a search, you can really have, if you're a spindle spinner, I'm sure you already know this, you can have a lot of fun collecting spindles to spin with. But just keep in mind as you do so, the weight, the grams or ounces of the spindle does indicate what you're going to want to spin with it. So don't get so frustrated if you're trying to spin on your spindle a different fiber than what you're used to spinning and it's struggling and you're struggling with it. It could be that you don't have a good weight ratio to the fiber that you're spinning. That's my understanding, at least, of the drop spindle. Now, the next category of spindles that I wanted to share with you is supported spindles. And again, different regions of the world have different types of supported spindles. And I've seen a kick spindle. I've seen a supported spindle used by Native Americans of the southwest region of the United States, spinning a very long spindle shaft, but with it being supported in a bowl at the bottom. There are, if you look up supported spindles, you will probably find a ton of images. But I was interested in looking into a supported spindle, and a lot of times you'll see you'll see little bowls so that the dowel, using this as an example, would sit. You wouldn't use it with a drop spindle, okay? But similar concept for a sport in a bowl. But there was an interesting discussion I was seeing when I was looking into supported spindles, and I needed a supported spindle. I decided a drop spindle would be a little too difficult to use when traveling. I needed to travel cross country with my daughter one year during Tour de Fleece. And was it Tour de Fleece? It was, I'm pretty sure it was Tour de Fleece, yes, because of the time of the year, yeah. And I needed to have a supported spindle because I figured I could do that while sitting in a car. So I had my husband start playing around with a little bit of the supported spindle. And one of the first ones he came up with for me, and pardon the strange fiber that's on here. I don't even remember. Oh, geez, yeah. It's been a while since I demonstrated with that one. The first one he came up with because I'd been listening to a conversation online about holding the support between your knees. Instead of just having a bowl, having the bowl on so that you could actually support with the knees in your lap. And so he started working on that concept, figuring out the size, the shape, and getting the balance. So that's one of his first combinations for me. So he went back to the drawing board and he worked a little bit more and he came up with this one. And I think the camera is working over there, but it sits there between my knees, and I can park. Oops. I don't remember which way. There we go. I can support, I can spin while sitting. Okay. And this one does have this spindle that he made. He knows that I like the purple heartwood, so he made me this spindle. He even put a really, let's see if I can get in, there we go, really sweet Celtic knot at the bottom. And so this works. I actually have spun a skein of yarn using that spindle. It worked. It worked really well. It's because you can hold it in your lap. You don't have to be, you don't have to have a table or anything. You can just sit there and you can spin with it. So, supported spindles, they can be the ideal when it comes to portability, compact nature, the whole works. I even have a little bag. I have a little bag that, like a little toiletry bag that that the spindle fits in, and enough fiber to do the spinning, and it works. So I have done it. It was one of the challenges of Tour de Fleece a few years ago. I suspect there is photos in my Ravelry projects sharing it. I believe it was purple and yellow that I was spinning, and I have to say I enjoyed it. I enjoyed. Part of the trip was spent flying to my location to then drive back with my daughter, and I spun in the airport, and yeah, it works. So while I prefer, my preferred method of spinning is on a wheel, I can, when necessary, spindle spin. So the next category, moving from spindles, we have the spindle wheels. And the two most probably famous of the spindle wheels is the great wheel, the walking wheel, otherwise known as the walking wheel, the great wheel that we see. And then the other one is, and please forgive me if I mispronounce this, but it is the cotton spinning charka. I think that is how you pronounce it, I hope. And both of those are spindle wheels. So you have the gigantic one on one end, and you have the tiny little sits on a table or on the floor, hand cranked charka on the other end. One spins wool, one spins cotton, and they're both based on the spindle. They both have a spindle sticking out. And just like with the drop spindle, just like with the supported spindle, you spin and then you wrap the fiber onto the spindle. It's a two-step process, you might say. It's probably, in my case, a three-step, because then there's the drafting. There's the drafting, the parking, the spinning, and the wrapping. So a four-step process. Now you see why I like the spinning wheel, my spinning wheel better. It's a one-step process. So those are the two spindle wheels that most of us will have seen a picture of if we look for them. So that brings us then into the last category, which is the modern, and I say modern because it is a modern spinning device. I was watching an archaeological show the other day, and and it was talking it was a ancient or more ancient historian, and I wouldn't say, no, I take that back, not an ancient, but not a modern. Her area was pre 1000 AD CE, depending on the terminology you're accustomed to using. Current era, it was pre 1000, specific to, I believe, the British Isles. And they were talking to her and asking her some questions, and asked her a question about a find that had been found in one of the areas. She says, "Oh, well, I know that this is what it is, but that's just too modern for me." And the guy looked and said, "Too modern?" She says, "Yes, it's too new century." And he's like, "Which century are we talking about?" She was, of course, talking about anything after 1000 CE, the current era. So when I say that the spinning wheel that I'm spinning on is a modern technology, it is. It's hard to get a very specific date, but I know that we see a huge change in the spinning and textile world right as the Renaissance is beginning. Some have attributed the change in our ability to do textiles as part of what has helped, part of what brought in the Renaissance. The ability to manufacture larger, or I should say the ability to manufacture cloth more quickly certainly changes the way technology in the larger scheme, think sails on ships, can be, and uniforms on soldiers. Yes, the world moves around based upon, sadly, the desires of kings and kingdoms through history. But the spinning wheel is something that is a modern technology in the grand scheme of spinning fibers. And the spinning wheel falls into a number of different categories itself. We have, let's see, we have the Saxony Castle or Norwegian style spinning wheels. If you look up those type, it's interesting because I think if you look at the Kromsky line of spinning wheels, you will actually see the Saxony wheel, which is the symphony I was spinning on yesterday. To this one here is a castle wheel, and their Polonaise, I believe, is a Norwegian style spinning wheel. So if you look just at the Kromsky line, you'll see those kind of represented. Yeah, and then you have all the variations. So now we have modern looking wheels, modern materials for our wheels. Let's see what else. Oh yes, then I'm going to run out of time. You have double treadles, you have single treadles, you have double drives, you have Scotch tension, you have Irish tension. You have a number of different variations to these wheels. And then, of course, the most modern of our spinning devices is the electric spinning wheel, where you don't need to use your feet, except for in the case of maybe turning on and off the power. Sometimes there is a pedal to do that as opposed to just knobs. And so, that is my discussion of the things we spin with. I think the camera over here is still on. I think I've covered everything on my card. I've shown you my lovely, let me get this one out. My lovely, spindles and spinning wheels. Spinning wheels. There's another spinning wheel over there. Oh, yes, and I'm running out of time, and so I want to wrap this up before I completely lose it. I definitely will be taking a nap today. So thank you for joining me for another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. I hope that you are enjoying Tour de Fleece 2023, and we will see you tomorrow.